Welcome back to the Motivating Force podcast. I am host Sway, and joining me, as always, we have Justin. Now, this week, we're going to continue on getting that motivational ball rolling, getting back into the hang of things after, as we all know now, Justin's a new dad. So he's been a little out of it, but we're getting that motivation ball going for you guys. And this week, we're going to talk about resilience. And no, resilience does not mean that everything's going to be perfect sunshine and rainbows for you all the time and that you're never going to have a bad time. But resilience means, I'll actually give you the definition here. The capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness. So not being tough as in you're this super strong person who lifts weights all the time, but tough as in you let things bounce off of you. So basically being like rubber. Being able to snap back, being able to bounce back from whatever low you find yourself in at the time. And as we mentioned on Monday's episode with all the people that were high strung, all the people that did encounter all those lows in, Justin's job, being a mechanic, finding out that they needed to buy a new car, being able to bounce back from that scenario is what we're going to be talking about today.
The ability to bounce back, it can take you very far. Having resilience, like you're saying, it's not that everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows, but again, they talk about how quickly you recover from situations, which means how soon does it take you to get to a solution? Yeah. And I feel like that's all that matters about today.
And remember, guys, life is not about the end goal. It's actually about the journey. It's about the ups and downs in the roller coaster that you're riding. It's about the peaks and the valleys and the scenery that you're painting for yourself to look back on at the end of your life. Remember, you're creating that mountain range, that beautiful sight to look back on when you're retiring, that you did all of these things, you had all your highs, you did have your peaks, but you were resilient enough to come out of those valleys and create a new high for yourself. And how else do you create a new peak from a valley if you aren't resilient? If you get into that low rut and you find out you need to buy a new car, you find out that your motor's blown, if you find out whatever the case is that happened to be the worst case scenario for you at the time, how are you supposed to get out of that? Are you going to continue to be miserable? Woe is me all the time? Are you going to continue to just think life is out to get me? No, you shouldn't, is what I'm trying to say here.
I was going to say, a lot of people would.
Yeah, a lot of people would, and that is the problem.
Right.
We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but that is an issue that is ongoing. And a point that I really want people to understand is being resilient is a character trait, right? We've talked about character traits before, and it's something that you can progressively get better at. If you feel like there are some things that you're able to bounce back from, you can bounce back from a lot more if you just keep being mindful of what it is that your actions are when a scenario like that happens. So like if you get a C or a D on a test, right? If you're able to bounce back from that and go, okay, I need to study more, then when your car blows up because you're not taking care of it, you should be able to be like, maybe I should take care of my next car that I obviously have to go buy now.
Right. I think it's good too that another point to mention here where you did mention one side of it where it's like, don't do these things. But on the further end of it with resilience is to not mistake lack of responsibility for being resilient. And what I mean by that is if you get a C or D on a test and it's a bad thing and you're going to be like, well, that's not a bad thing because school doesn't mean anything to me, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's not being resilient. That's you not taking responsibility for things that are happening to you.
Yeah.
Right? So I guess that is kind of just what I want to say about that is make sure you don't mistake those two in your life. Being resilient, you're still going to be taking responsibility for things that happen to you, whether they're your fault or not, and moving forward from it.
I mean, the first part is acknowledging that it is a valley. It is a low point in your life. So if you don't acknowledge the C or D being a bad grade, then that shouldn't even come into play when you're trying to realize if you're resilient or not. You have to be able to acknowledge that it's bad, right?
Right.
So you need to be able to come back from that low point, from that dead end or the terrible situation that we're mentioning, If you don't have the ability to do that, then you aren't going to have much of a scenic view to look back on at the end of your life. It's going to be a very boring roller coaster, which we've talked about before. It's just going to be like Sheikra, where it's like that one drop and that's it. And you're going to be like, well, I was expecting more.
That's your whole life.
Yeah, that's it. Like, you wanted more out of that roller coaster. You waited 50 years or what felt like a lifetime in that line just to go up and down really fast, and that's it. No, you wanted
Sounds like
more.
the people that peak in high school, right?
Ooh, that's a good example.
25, you still drive the Honda Civic, and like, still go to like the basketball games, and
High school
those
reunions.
people.
I feel like that's torture.
I'm excited to go just because,
Oh, well, okay, so that's different. You knew everybody in your high school because it was a private school. So it's more of like an intimate moment.
I'm interested in just seeing if it becomes this competitive brawl, right? Where everybody's just like secretly just trying to one up each other, or
but that's
if
what I'm
there's
saying,
like
it's
some
torture.
genuine like compassion there.
Yeah.
Like that's the only reason why I want to go. I'm just curious to see how everybody else is going to be about it. That's
you're there for the Gladiator Brawl that's gonna ensue.
Yeah,
but no, that's a great example. Being able to like the people that peak and then they don't come back from that.
Right.
You don't want to live your life like that. So to start, look inward and realize all the little hiccups that you let overcome yourself in life. Right? I mentioned the little things that you are able to come back from, being a test, a school test or whatever. Or, major issues like relationship. You're not able to bounce back from a relationship. There's other underlying issues that you should be able to focus on before you get into the next one. So there's steps in that valley in order to get out of it. But put your foot down to those hiccups and look at them as just a little pothole in the ground. Sure, it's unpleasant. And when you drive over a pothole that your butthole gets a little tight, forget about that at the moment. Because when you drive over them, sure, it's uncomfortable, but in the end, nothing really was damaged unless you're going 120. Mm-hmm. But nothing's really damaged. You're not it's not life altering. You're able to come back from that. You're able to continue living your life. You're able to continue driving forward. And that's the message I want people to understand, is that life's going to go on. They should be able to keep going on with it. Being able to come back from that low point, being able to be resilient in time of needing to be resilient.
I mean, I like that too, because that is a pretty loaded metaphor there. All with preparation in mind and everything, because life is going to have those potholes for you to run over, and you're not going to be able to swerve and miss every single one of them.
Yeah. And
the ones you do hit, you definitely don't want to be doing 120 when you hit it, because then you're going to do some real damage. But moral of the story of that, it's don't live life so recklessly, right? And with the resilient side to that, when you hit those potholes and you're, like you said, your butt puckers up, right? And you're like, oh, that's going to cost some money. You got to realize that it's not going to be that life altering for you. And sometimes things will be inconvenient and say they do cost money, right? Just generic, right? Yeah. They take a little bit of time, a little bit of effort on your part, or take a little bit of money. But life's going to go on, and you will get to live the same life you lived, or hopefully a better life every single day, and move forward from these things. You don't got to stay hung up on them. Yeah. That's the point of being resilient.
I mean, I kind of use the same. Really, it's almost like the opposite, the complete opposite of that metaphor when it comes to relationship issues that I have with my girlfriend, right? We will have times, obviously, like any other relationship, you'll have times of like where issues ensue, and then you guys have to kind of work through them, right? And she's kind of the person that she gets locked on to the worst case scenario. Mm-hmm. And I kind of tell her, like, listen, we can see through that. It's just right now it's a little speed bump. Mm-hmm. It's not this mountain that you're making this problem out to be. It's a little speed bump. We're going to take it slow, get over that speed bump. We're going to continue on. Road's going to be flat. We're going to be good. Yeah. Right? Or it's going to be uphill, whatever the case. It's a little problem. So I guess if we use it in this analogy, it's a little pothole. Right? We'll work our way over it. It's not like it's the Grand Canyon in front of us that we're not able to drive over.
Some people think you're going to hit the pothole and then spin out of control and go into a ball of flame.
Or just hit the pothole and be stuck there forever.
Right.
Yeah, which is not what you want to do. You want to be able to keep on going. But that's just an example that I use with my girlfriend on, like I said, relationship issues that people can use in their own life. You know, it could be whatever scenario that you find yourself in, acknowledging or seeing the pothole ahead of time, acknowledging that it could be a problem and preparing yourself so then you can be resilient when it does happen. Right. So then when you do see that issue coming, you're like, okay, I'm going to snap back from this, but it has to hit first.
Right.
So learn to be resilient, learn to overcome these doubts and worries about never making it out of those valleys, because you will make it out of those valleys in your life. Know that you can build back up and life will continue to move on. This is something that we see as a problem in today's society that I mentioned earlier that we were going to talk about, and now the time has come. I'll say it once more. This is a Tim Kennedy proverb / quote, which Rogan's mentioned, and I've mentioned that Rogan said it. But hard times make tough men. Hard men make easy times, but easy times make weak men. Let that soak in.
It's a circle.
But this is due to the lack of resilience, right? People now have it too easy and fear any sort of conflict or confrontation. Look at how our society has turned out from that. It's one thing to let people walk all over you and then get up and continue to get stepped on, right? Then being resilient is getting walked on, getting back up, and learning how to stop that from continuing to happen. Because you don't want to keep hitting pothole after pothole. You want to be able to see the pothole, hit it, and then go, okay, there's another one coming. I'm going to avoid it. I'm going to go swerve to the right. I'm going to swerve to the left. I'm not going to let these potholes continue to happen, because then it's just going to mess up your alignment.
Right. I mean, it's good. There's a lot there to that saying, and especially when we talk about issues that we deal with today as a society, especially here in the States, more specifically, just because that's what I'm more familiar with, of course. And oh man, it is a loaded topic that I don't think takes just one episode to cover. But to put it simply in relation to what's going on here, where we're talking about these potholes bouncing back, having resiliency, having just a little bit of thicker skin.
Yeah.
And I think that if everybody realized two things, the first being there's always another option, and the second being that was not a personal attack. If you can realize those two things for any encounter you have in your life, I think we would be in a much better position today as a society, as America, as a whole, you know.
And I like where you're coming from with the not a personal attack, because speaking of personal attacks, today we are recording on 9/11, which hopefully everybody hasn't forgotten, the attack on the Twin Towers, the terrorist attack on the Twin Towers, I should say. Kind of wanted to make it like a memoriam of the day, since we are recording on Saturday, but even though this comes out on Wednesday, that people, well, we should say as a society, needs to learn to be resilient, right? So it's one thing, we got the individual out of the way at the beginning of this. You guys are focusing on working on yourselves and becoming more resilient, but as a unit, as America, as, you know, countries in general, wherever you're listening to this from, be resilient when it comes to terrorism. Be resilient when it comes to your government, when it comes to knowing what the world actions are. You know, if everybody wants to say that they're all into politics nowadays because of what's happening in the world, fine. But if you're not knowledgeable on, you know, world events that are kind of ensuing that are bad, or I should say evil, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. But being able as a society to understand the consequences and the results of what would happen in scenarios like what happened on 9/11. Like, as America, I'm pretty sure we all understand what's happening now with Afghanistan and the pullback and that whole dilemma that we have going on, and seeing how that's changed the dynamic, I should say, of United States at the moment. And it's kind of tough watching, but we don't have to go into that. I just wanted to say, like, as a society, as people that should be trying to work out of this hard time that we're in, that we're creating for ourselves, because now I believe that we are in the time of soft men, or how does he put it?
Yeah,
Weak
right.
men,
Mhm.
getting out of the cycle of being weak men, creating a hard time. I feel like as a society, we all have to work on being resilient.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's a hard cycle to break, and I don't think there's really a proven time in history where cycles have not repeated themselves. Which, as grim as that might sound, and seeing the upcoming future with everything, that just makes it more prevalent than ever to work on yourself as an individual and work on those that you do have an influence over, and develop a great home unit, a great home base, have the people around you love and cherish, develop all these qualities for yourself, for the people around you, teach, grow, spread the kindness, spread the love, but also, as Teddy Roosevelt would say, carry a big stick too, right? So, and that comes a lot with the resilience. And when we do talk about bouncing back from things such as the events of 9/11, which again is what today is what we're recording on, and there is a lot to be said about that and how we handle those situations. And if we get too high strung, or we get too worked up, or too much in ourselves, and we see what a wonderfully crappy job our president is doing about it, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
There's only so much that you should allow it to consume your mental energy for. And really, what type of differences are you going to make and where you can make them? Because I know that people say that as a hypothetical a lot, like, well, what type of difference can you do? But I say that as a real question, because at some level, very small, minute level, there are things that you can do to make differences. Very, very small.
Yeah.
And if you feel that that's worth your time, then go about it. Do it.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned the Roosevelt quote as well, because I'll leave everybody with another quote that's going to foreshadow once again next Wednesday's episode. And it's along the lines of being a warrior in a garden than being a gardener in a war. Right? So think on that, ponder it. I'm going to keep today's episode nice and short and sweet for everybody. Like I said, we're just getting the ball back onto the motivational track for everybody. Hopefully you guys are liking the inside peek of our lives, of Justin's life as a new father. But remember, again, take being resilient to heart. Learn how to be more resilient when it comes to bigger issues, when it comes to yourself, when it comes to family, when it comes to global and, other issues that you find yourself in. Learn to bounce back from those situations, create another peak, another mountain peak from the valley that you find yourself in.
Yeah, definitely let us know down below in the comment section, or on, DMs, as a post over on Facebook, Instagram, any of the social medias. We would love to hear from you guys and know what type of content you guys are enjoying. I know we push out a lot of these motivational stuff, and because of current events, we have been doing a little bit more on the personal side. So let us know if you guys are enjoying those personal topics, and we'll bring more of those to the table. And of course, if you have anything specific you want us to talk about or discuss with you personally or here on the show, we're more than willing to do that. Just all you got to do is ask.
And remember, guys, like, comment, subscribe. You can share the videos, the page, whatever you want with friends and family. Remember, we are also on Anchor FM. You can download that app, listen to our audio only wherever you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, all those platforms. Or like I said, you can download the Anchor FM app and listen to us directly on there. That way, if you're multitasking, you're cleaning your house, you're doing something on your phone, and you just want to have us in your ear, you can go ahead and do that on that app itself. And all of our videos do come out Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 a.m. EST. And until next time, guys, go on and get